The focus of tonight's Zoomcast will be exploring family issues in recovery, lasting approximately 90 minutes. The facilitators are Medeline, Ellen, and I'm Jane, a grateful recovering codependent. As a reminder, tonight's Zoomcast will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel, Growing in Recovery, but your anonymity will be protected, meaning your names are eliminated from your video box, and you can even eliminate your photo if you like by turning off your camera. So let's get started with tonight's Zoomcast topic on family issues. I'll turn it over to Medeline, who'll get us started.
Thank you, Jane, and good evening, everybody. I'm Medeline. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm also a codependent and an adult child. Tonight, what we're going to do is cover a huge topic, and that is family issues, and then how to relate recovery and all the tools we've learned in recovery to family issues, major family issues. And we're going to do this in two ways. One is we're going to talk about the problems, and I hope this will be a review for you. And secondly, then we're going to talk about the solutions. And we're going to do it through a slideshow. So I'm going to start sharing with you guys some slides. And as you know, the topic for tonight is exploring family issues in recovery, and the three of us that will be a part of this. We're going to cover a huge amount of information tonight, and we're going to try to give as many examples as time will allow on how we use recovery to solve our family issues. But I don't know that we're going to have time to solve everybody's issue in one session. So we have a big surprise for you at the end of the meeting tonight. So if you don't get your questions answered, hang in there and we'll see what's going on. But first, let's go. One thing I want you to do first is get a piece of paper and pencil or pen, something to write on, because as we go through some of this, I want you to jot down things that bother you, things that seem to step on your toes, things that you disagree with, but jot down any questions you might have as we go through, because we're going to throw things at you fast and furious. And secondly, halfway through, we're going to do problems first, and we're going to stop in the middle and do a quiz. And the quiz has 24 questions. And if there is something on the quiz that bothers you or you disagree with, again, jot that down on your worksheet so we can talk about it at the very end. And of course, meaning at the very end, we'll have a Q&A, question and answer period. So if you're ready, here we go. Here's the problem, and this is what's going on, as I hope you already know. Family issues usually always involves parenting of children, but also parenting of teenagers, parenting of our adult children, and of course, parenting our own parents, and of course, reparenting ourselves, which is what we've been talking about a lot in adult-child meetings. But also the issues, the tools that we have in recovery, we use with everybody. So it's not just our family issues. So here's the review, the problems. Ready? I hope you know all of this. Many of us come out of families where there's a lot of dysfunction, and we have character defects that I like to call character defenses that we develop throughout our whole life. Defenses like, or problems from the family, like a lot of control there. There was a lot of authority. There was a lot of judgment in my family for sure. And that creates a lot of victims growing through those families. Many of us experienced a lot of abuse, and that could be physical abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, or even sexual abuse. And all of that leads to, here's some of our characteristics: perfectionist, being codependent, being fear-driven, shame-driven, guilt-driven. We become caretakers. We become overly responsible for other people. We become repressed. We tend to act like our parents when we grow up. We might become dependent, or we might become controllers, or we might have a combination of both. But all of that saying is we did not grow up to be healthy, mature adults. What happened really was we were immature growing up, and one of my favorite authors is Pia Mellody, and she says that all of that immaturity is basically caused by childhood abuse, and she calls all of that childhood abuse. And what she does too in her work about us is to try to identify how does that translate into our personalities. We end up with low self-esteem. We have no idea about how to set boundaries. Our self-esteem, our self-concept about who we are, we have no clue about that. We become dependent. We have no idea about how to handle everyday life. And some of us even become narcissistic parents when we start having children. Another of my favorite authors is Janet Walters, who also identifies some of our characteristics. We become impulsive. We misplace loyalty. Many of us get into relationships with people and we have no business being in there. Many of us not just date these people, we marry these people, and we shouldn't be in there, and we can't get out, and so we don't know how to do this. We also become people pleasers. Our parenting styles are all screwed up, and many of us develop multiple addictions to kind of handle our low self-esteem and what we think about ourselves. There's one concept I want to share with a slide here, and this comes from Pia Mellody again. She distinguishes our self-esteem, how we value ourselves, in two different ways. Self-esteem, she says, is internal. It's how we think about ourselves, how we value ourselves. But she says many people do what she calls other esteem, which means we get our value from external sources. And she even lists some of them: how we look, how much money we make, who we know, what kind of car we have, or what kind of job we have, whether our children perform or not and do really well, or how important our spouse is, or mine was what kind of degrees I got. It's the degrees that gave me value, and that's just crazy. So here we are, children, emotionally. We grow up into adults through size, we become adult size, and we also have the years on us. But if we start having children, then we are children raising children. And many of us act like children with other people. And we have a great example to share with you. And this is Ellen, who moved to California, moved in with her aunt. And Ellen, then what happened? And you're muted, Ellen.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't find the mute. I'm Ellen, and I'm an adult child and codependent in that. So I moved out to California to help take care of my Aunt Dorothy. We're 11 years apart. And when I moved in there, I felt like the child that I was like years ago, like 10, 11, 12, whatever, and that she was my authority figure. And she just took on the role that I was the little kid still. And we did that for a little while. It boggles my mind how I could just go back to being that child that I was, years ago, moving in with her.
Thank you, Ellen. Now, what I'm going to do in just a second is stop the video. But all of this that we've said so far, you guys know already, right? You know the characteristics that we come into these rooms with. And the problem, of course, is we don't stop them. We don't stop acting that way. So we pass these on to our children. We use them with our own parents. We use them with our neighbors. We use them with our spouse. And that's not going to work. So I'm going to stop the video for just a few minutes, and we're going to have a little quiz. And what I want you to do is answer the questions of this quiz by raising your hand. This can be your real hand, or you can raise your digital hand, which should be available under reactions on the bottom of your screen if you're on a bigger computer. And that little thumbs up will only stay for a few seconds. So I'm going to go through a series of questions, and you can answer them from the point of view of, how did your parents raise you? You know, did they do these kind of things or not? Or if you like, how did you raise your own children? You can answer them any way you like. But we're going to give you the answers all the way through. But I want you to thumbs up or thumbs down, either real or digital, and let us know what your feelings are about each of the questions. Now, the answers that we're going to give will be recovery answers, okay? All right, here we go. Number one, can a person who was brought up in a dysfunctional family be a healthy parent? Yes or no? Okay, where are the rest
Yes.
of you? Thumbs up? Okay, I see some thumbs up. And the answer is
Yes.
Yes.
yes. Number two, without intervention, without change, are parenting styles usually repeated generation after generation? Yes or no? Okay, the answer is
Yes.
yes. Good. Number three, is it okay for young children to take care of their parents? Yes or no? The answer is
No.
no. Y'all are doing good. 100 so far, right? Number four, this one can have various answers, by the way. Number four, was your childhood relatively carefree, where you play without worry and felt loved by your parents? Personal question. Yes or no? Yes, no. I should be getting most of it. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting some of this. Good. Number five, is it okay for parents to say no to their children? Yes or no? I'm getting mostly thumbs up. Yes. Number six, should parents teach their children about feelings? Yes or no? All right, I'm getting a lot of digital thumbs up. Good, y'all finding it. Number seven is also one that'll have various answers. But did you or did your parents, you can answer this one either way, did you or your parents do the following? A, did your parents attend parenting classes when you were little? Yes or no? I'm getting more no's. B, did they or did you study the ages and stages of children of your own, for your own children? Yes or no? I'm getting a mix, aren't I? And C, if you have children now, will you take classes or study how to be a parent? Yes or no? I'm getting some thumbs up. Good. And some I don't have children. Good going. Number 8. This is another yes or no question. Is it okay? Is it normal for us or our children to be upset or angry? Yes or no? All right. And the answer is
Yes.
yes. Number 9, is it okay for a child to question or even challenge a parent's decision? Yes or no? Okay, I'm getting more thumbs up and I'm getting some yeses. Y'all are finding some good responses here. Number 10, is it good to make your house child-centered? Yes or no? I'm getting more thumbs up, I think, and I don't know, okay. Number 11 also has various answers, so there's no exact one. This is more about your upbringing. Do you know how to, A, handle temper tantrums? Yes or no? I'm getting some yeses, some no's, okay? B, do you know how to get your kids to bed at night without a temper tantrum? Yes or no? I'm getting some yeses, good. C, do you know how to help kids to go to sleep at night without fussing about it, without screaming or hollering? I'm getting more yeses, some no's, good. Number D, Do you know how to help kids get up for school in the morning without a scene? Yes or no? In a pleasant way, in a loving way? Yes or no? Okay. And the last one on this question, do you know how to feed your kids healthy foods? Yes or no? I hope we get mostly yeses on this one. Okay, very good. Number 12, this is a yes or no one. My 64-year-old mother has been diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. Should I tell the doctor about her drinking problem? Yes or no? I'm getting a lot of yeses. I'm getting some no's. Okay. If this bothers you, stick it down and we'll talk about it later. Number 13, my adult daughter or son comes to me for advice. Should I tell him or her how I would handle the problem? Yes or no? I'm getting some yeses. I'm getting some no's. I'm getting some no's. We may have to talk about this one in a minute. Okay, number 14. Should we talk with a louder voice when speaking to special needs children or the elderly or the deaf? Talk with a louder voice. Yes or no? I believe we got mostly no's. Good. Number 15. Is it okay to talk to the elderly or special needs adults as if they were children? In other words, using baby talk. All right, mostly no's. Good for y'all. Number 16. Are you preparing for your own retirement, saving money, planning for your new adventures? Different answers here. Yes, yes, no, maybe. Okay. All right. You know, we got to talk about that one, don't we? Number 17. Did your parents prepare for their elder years, financially and in terms of adventure? Statistically, today, they'll have at least 20 years of retirement. Did they plan for their own retirement? Yes or no? We're getting some, okay, yes and no. We're getting various answers. Number 18, is it your responsibility to provide a child-centered life for your children? Yes or no? No, yes, yes, no. Okay, no, I'm getting various answers. Number 19, is it true that a troubled family is one that is adult-centered, where the needs of the children do not come first? Yes or no? Okay.
Can you repeat that
no.
one? Could you repeat that?
Yeah,
Yes, I'll
please repeat.
Is it true that a troubled family is one that is adult-centered, where the needs of the children do not come first? Is that true or false? I'm getting some thumbs up and some thumbs down. Okay, most interesting. Number 20, my adult son or daughter is getting a divorce and wants to live with me for a while. First question, should I say yes? Yes or no? I'm getting more no's, a couple yeses, of no's, okay. Second part of that one, if they move in with me, should I charge him or her rent? Yes, 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 getting more yeses and a no. Okay, interesting. Remember to jot down issues here that we can talk about later if we need to. Number 21, my adult daughter has a disagreement with her sister and comes to me with a problem. Should I get involved? Yes or no? No, 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 no. Oh, I believe all of you got no. And the answer is?
No.
No, correct. Number 22, my brother cuts the grass for me at no charge, but leaves some areas a mess. Should I tell him exactly how I want him to mow the lawn? Yes or no? I'm getting yeses and no's. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. The last two questions are about something that I always get hooked with, because every time I've taught parenting classes, this has come up. The last two questions, number 23 are, is it okay to spank children? Yes or no? And the answer is
No.
no. Number 24, Will children go wild if not spanked? Yes or no? The answer is
No.
no. Yes, very good. Okay, we're going back to the screen share, and now we're going to look at solutions. Hope you all can see it okay. So here are our solutions. And this is working the program, and hopefully you know this, and hopefully we can relate it to family issues pretty easily. Some of the solutions are, as you know, we must let go of, even with family, we must let go of control, caretaking, shame and blame. We must give up those abandonment behaviors that we have inside of us. And even we need to thaw out those feelings, frozen feelings that we often have. And Ellen has an example about this. Ellen?
Okay, so I had an abandonment issues from my parents. My mom was mentally ill and my dad was an alcoholic. He didn't confess to that, but he was the drinker. He also beat me only a couple times, and I see my brother get beaten. My parents were, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but neither one were there for me emotionally or any other way. So I had abandonment issues, and they didn't come up until I was an adult. As a matter of fact, till 2017. That's not that long ago, or 2016. So, and then frozen feelings, I didn't want to feel, especially when I was in high school. So I drank to cover that up, and I tried different drugs, not like Coke or anything like that, but I didn't want to feel, so I tried to numb myself. And so what I did was I got into the program, and I worked on myself. I went to workshops. I did the steps. I got a sponsor, did the steps. I've gone to workshops, seminars, and all kinds of stuff. And I have done a lot of work on myself so those feelings would thaw. Because I did want to feel again. And sometimes I feel things that I really don't want to feel, but it's good to feel. You know, it's like that double-edged sword about feelings. And the abandonment, I've had to really work on that and come up with different solutions. I have tools in the toolbox to help me when I'm triggered with abandonment, but I have identified that, and I have really worked hard to get to the core of what my abandonment issues were, where the behaviors come from. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We also need to change from other esteem to self-esteem, and to feel good about ourselves for the right reason. We also need to let go of being responsible for other people, and we need to use crosstalk. And Jane has a good example of that one. Jane?
Or rather the no crosstalk rule.
Mm-hmm.
Attending meetings multiple times per week over the past 5 years has given me experience that I needed to really practice the skill of listening without interrupting, and to stop myself from analyzing for the purpose of solving someone else's problem. To apply this principle with friends and family is an even greater challenge. As a codependent and an empath, my tendency is to feel and take on the emotion of the other person. Empathy is good. It allows me to put myself in the other person's place and understand how they feel. I thought I was being kind and compassionate by solving their problem for them. But I've learned in recovery that it's hurting, not helping, to give unsolicited advice. The Listen reading by Leo B. is read by someone at most of the meetings that I attend, and it has really helped me to understand this concept. To apply the no crosstalk rule to my daughters, first I had to learn to emotionally detach, but remain connected with love. I love them so much that I really don't want them to hurt. I want to fix the problem so that they don't feel the pain. But I've learned to tell myself the truth. They need to feel their pain and express the problem, and they're fully capable of figuring out the solution. I can brainstorm possible solutions if they would like, but I refrain from giving my opinion or trying to influence their decision. What's right for me is not necessarily what's right for them. My past experience may not be anything like their experience. I think I know, but that's based on me and my experience. This empowers them and communicates confidence in their ability to take care of themselves, to be healthy, independent adults. Practicing and applying my recovery has transformed my relationships with my daughters. They share with me deeper thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jane. Yeah. And besides using the program with people around us, of course, we need to use the program on ourselves. So that means we need to develop a good, healthy self-esteem. We need to quit acting like children. We need to learn who we are, who we want to be, develop our own self, our own personality, and make it happen. We need to learn about boundaries, how to use them, how not to use them. We need to learn how to become interdependent, not dependent or independent, but interdependent. And if you don't know what that means, we can talk about it in a few minutes. We also need to learn how to act and not react. Y'all have heard all of these before. We need to learn how to be honest and trustworthy. So some of the other tools, rather regular recovery tools, we need to also use with family members, like the 12 steps, including that horrendous 9th step, the one about amend. Ellen has a great example of how she did her 9th step with her adult daughter. Ellen?
So I was married to my first husband, and I had 2 children. And when I divorced, Dina was 3 and Louis was 5. And I believed I couldn't take care of them. So I signed, we had joint custody, and they lived with him. So I didn't really raise her. After the divorce was finalized, he wouldn't let me see him half the time. And so I wasn't there for Dina. And then as Dina got older, I got to start hanging out with her because they moved near me and I became the bus driver, and her and I seemed to get along really well. So we even went to college together after she graduated high school, and then she moved to Florida and I moved to North Carolina. Well, then something happened and we weren't talking really. She stopped talking to me. Well, I did my 12 steps and I got to the 9th step, and the most important person for me to make amends to was her, my daughter. So she wanted me in her life because she had her daughter, my granddaughter. So I drove down to Florida from North Carolina and met with her. What was really good, Bella was sleeping. She was 2.5 at that time. And Dina and I sat there and talked, and I told her, it still gets to me. I talked about my dogs are getting empathetic here. I talked about how I was in the program, 12-step program, and I was here to make amends to her for what had happened when she was younger, and even, all through her life, why I wasn't there. And we sat and we cried. Both of us were crying. We were hugging. and tell each other that we love each other. And so I don't get to see her that much or hear from her that much, but we still, I know that we're good. And before I made that amends, the one thing I had to tell myself, because I didn't know what the outcome would be, is not to have any expectations on what will happen. I can't expect her to forgive me or anything. I just have no expectations. I cleaned my side street, and it was a good thing. That 9th step was really hard, but it was the best thing that I could do for my daughter and my relationship with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Wow, what a story. We also need to learn how to set boundaries. If this happens, then I'm going to do that. And I've noticed in our meetings, a lot of people don't quite know how to set boundaries or what boundaries mean. And if we need to work on that later, we can. We also need to learn how to detach, and that means to not get involved with whatever is outside our hula hoop, as we often say. We need to learn how to be emotionally present, even if we cry or whatever it is, So we need to be emotionally present, acknowledge feelings, learn about them and all that. And we need to have family meetings. We need to let everybody talk. It's just like in our regular 12-step meetings. We have group inventories. We have group conscious sessions. Well, families need to have that as well. Everybody in the family in the meeting has a right to say what they want. That doesn't mean that we're going to do what they say. They may not get their way, but they can have their say. And even children that are 2 or 3 or 4 years old, they also can have that as well. So it's, we use the program even with families. We also need to eliminate expectations. You've heard that said already. Never to give unsolicited advice. And I say never to give advice. So that's another one we can talk about. To give a lot of emotional support and to give a lot of hugs. In ACA, you've heard about the reparenting of ourselves concept. So we thought we would share a little bit about what that means to us. So we need to apply some of these parenting tools to us. We need to learn to act and not react. And Jane has an example of that one. Jane?
With a severely handicapped, nonverbal, totally dependent 27-year-old son at home with me, I sometimes think, what would happen if something catastrophic happened to me? Well, several weeks ago, I panicked, facing that fear when I felt like my airway was closing up. I called my daughter, and as she was calming me down and helping me to think through a plan of action, as well as texting people while she was doing that, trying to find someone that could come to my house so that I could call 911. I couldn't leave my son behind. I broke down in tears on the floor beside my bed. And in that moment, I felt like an extremely frightened child. My father calming me flashed through my mind. And my daughter and I laughed as we shared that, as I shared that with her. But really, after the experience, my 3 daughters and I had some very good discussions about how we would handle emergency situations like this in the future. And I feel a lot better having a plan in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We also need to use recovery language in all our dialogue. We can use this. We can do it. It works. One of the big things for a lot of us is the critical parent that we grew up with that stays in our heads even after they're gone or even dead. And Ellen has got an example of negative self-talk as she turned it around. Ellen?
Okay, so my critical parent was my mom, not saying very nice stuff to me, not being supportive. And when I do things like make a mistake or like driving along on the highway and I missed the exit, I would beat myself up. What is wrong with you? You should know better. That is stupid, that kind of talk. That I learned that I need to have positive self-talk. So now when I do things like that, and I did it a lot when I was driving back from Pennsylvania, it's like, oh, well, sometimes I say, well, I get to see more things around the area, it's more, so it's a different way of talking to myself. That positive self-talk is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, and for sure. When I had my son, I realized there was a lot that I didn't know. When I got into recovery, also, there was so much I did not know. So I think sometimes what we have to do is learn some new skills. And we're going to help you a little bit with that. We've said in the quiz that you never spank, hit children, but then what do you do to discipline them? So among the handouts that we're making available for y'all is, I think, a 7-page document on all the ways to discipline children without ever laying a hand on them. So that's coming up. But since I mentioned spanking, I want Ellen to share what happened with her when her children were small and she decided not to spank them.
When my children were small, I was spanked myself, and I believe it breaks the spirit. And I didn't want to do that. My spirit was broken. And my self-esteem was affected. So with my children, I did not want to do that, and I wouldn't. And people said, oh, your child is, speaks back to you like that. Why do you let them do that? And it's like, or, but I found that my children and I could have a conversation, well, mommy, I don't like doing that, why? And if they did something, I actually took parenting classes when I first got into recovery, because I wanted to learn how to do something different with my children. And one thing was timeout or positive reinforcement kind of thing to use with them. And all my girls, I am really proud of the way they are. Maybe they talk back to me, and maybe they did things that they shouldn't have done, but I did not spank them. I found another way to do it, and they are healthy individuals who have done very well with college and their jobs and raising their families. Thank you.
And for some of y'all that live in the Southeast, you know probably that spanking is a major form of discipline that's used. And we think spanking is not good at all. And we can debate that in a little bit. But there's things I had to learn too. If you don't spank, then how do you do the discipline thing? How do you teach kids how to be adults? So we can talk about that later if you want to, but you've got a great handout. You actually have 2 handouts, and one of them is about why spanking is bad based on research, what it does to the kids. So you've got that one coming as well. The second one listed here is use observational skills. You'll know the ages and stages of your children and later of your elder parents and all that, but you have to observe them to see what's going on. You can also use life experiences to teach them. And one time I was teaching a parenting class, and a granddad was in the class, and he said, let me tell you how I use my house to teach math. And what he does, in his house, they have a tile floor. Y'all know tile floor sometimes has, 12-inch blocks of tile that they glue together on the floor. Have y'all seen it? He used those blocks of tile to teach adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division with his grandchildren. He also used the steps, going up and down the steps, which also had railings on the steps, and he used that to teach math as well. And also in those classes, I remember one mom told me how she taught language skills to her children. And she would have the children tell her what happened that day at school, or to tell her all about the movie they had just seen, word for word and scene for scene, which gets kind of boring to us adults. but it helps the child learn language. Language development is learned that way. So use everyday life experiences to help children learn how to be adults. Another example is listening and communication skills. And Jane has an example for us there. Jane?
My special needs son, who is nonverbal, has taught me so much about the power of communication. He has cerebral palsy and he can understand everything that's being said to him, but he has very limited expressive communication. I attended a seminar on using augmentative communication devices with nonverbal special needs children, and the presenter, who was a speech therapist, shared with us some powerful information that I feel can be applied to all children, especially young children who are in the process of learning to talk. Actually, I believe we can even apply the concept to adults who are stifled from being understood due to our inability or unwillingness to listen to them. This speech therapist and his wife, who is an occupational therapist, worked with the most challenging autistic children across the country, children who have very aggressive behaviors, harming themselves or others. First, to understand what's happening in the brain of an autistic child was important. They're not able to differentiate individual words when they hear a person speak in sentences. So when we talk to them, we think and behave as if they can understand what's being said, but they can't. The parent or whoever may raise their voice, express frustration, maybe even discipline the child for not doing what they're told. And over time, the level of frustration keeps building and aggressive behaviors develop. The therapist realized that using a communication device and starting with a few words could help the child understand language and experience the power of communicating. As the child learned to understand and express himself, the aggressive behaviors disappeared. Eventually, these children were able to learn to talk. When we can apply this principle to very young children before they learn to talk by teaching them sign language and or learning to read their nonverbal communication. This has made a major difference in my 2-year-old granddaughter, who learned simple sign language before she was a year old. She continues to use sign language even as she is learning to talk. When she is frustrated, as I listen to her words, her signs, and other clues, and I verbalize what I believe she is thinking or feeling, I see that she calms down as soon as she knows that I understand. I really believe with my nonverbal son, living with my nonverbal son for 27 years and learning to communicate with him has made a big difference in my ability to tune in to nonverbal communication. We can apply this principle to older children, teenagers, and adults by simply learning to listen to understand, realizing frustrations arise when there is a communication breakdown. When children are upset, if I can facilitate communication, frequently just being able to understand will calm them down. If I can resolve a problem that they're having, possibly it's pain that they are not able to express, they can let go of their tension and frustration. I have seen this time and time again in working with my 2-year-old granddaughter. Thank you.
And it solves many problems. Just communication, clear communication. It's amazing. Good. we need to know the ages and stages of our children and our parents and all of that. And we've given you lots of resources on the resource page about where you can go to find out what is a 2-year-old like, a 3-year-old like, a 7-year-old, a 14-year-old, and also a 65-year-old, a 70-year-old. So we have some of those for you, which is really good. But before we leave this topic, we need to kind of address another issue, because we've heard it over and over and over again. And that is using our tools when our adult children need to or want to live with us, or when we are living with them. So we have 2 examples here. Ellen is first about living with her daughter and grandson. And how do you make that work, Ellen?
So when COVID hit, I've been living by myself for a long time. And when COVID hit, I lost my job. So I decided to sell my home. I was going to go nomad. And my daughter asked me to move in with her. So I'm moving in with the child now. So I have had my own room, but I shared the bathroom with my grandson and shared the kitchen with them. And it was really, really hard for my daughter and I to adjust to this. Because first of all, what they do, what they say, how they raise their child, how they feed him is none of my business. I'm just there to help them out, take care of him, take him to school and that kind of thing. But their personal life and that is none of my business. So I spent a lot of time in my room, but and my daughter and I had a really good conversation about living together and how hard it is and trying to respect each other. I'm living in their home. It's not like they moved in with me, and I don't pay rent, but I do exchange for taking care of my grandson. And yeah, it's been hard. It's just working the program. The biggest thing is following my program, attending meetings and doing the 12 steps. And if there's something that comes up between me and my daughter, we're going to have to talk about it. Communication needs to be open. We have boundaries and we respect each other's boundaries. So it's a lot of recovery stuff that has helped me to survive that. Now, living in Connecticut, I came with them to still continue to take care of Kate. I have my own place. And let me tell you, I love it. I absolutely love it. So, thank you.
It works. And now the flip side of that, slightly different situation, is James. James?
Yes. My oldest daughter, who has 3 children, had been married to a man who was abusive and an alcoholic and an addict. Even after being divorced, he continued to be verbally abusive, making lots of threats. His mother had even expressed to my daughter her concern that he might harm my daughter. So she decided, and I agreed, that moving far away was a good idea. For safety, she moved from Philadelphia to the Atlanta area into my home with me and my son. We had a very clear 3-year plan, and she paid a small amount of rent, which I felt was important. All went really well, though the space was very tight. So at the end of 3 years, we discussed where we would go from there. And because of some of the clear-cut pros to her and I living together, we made plans to continue on. And then I attended a parenting workshop at the International CODA conference. And at the end of the workshop, I'm thinking, she didn't talk about parenting adult children. So I decided to give her a call. And after a little bit of discussion, she said she would be open to mentor me to discuss some of the issues that I was having with my adult children. And I'm very, very thankful that that happened, because it became really clear to me how my daughter and how I had slipped into codependence in this situation, and that it really was not healthy for either of us to continue. So thankfully, we made those changes and we're no longer living together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We talked about ages and stages of seniors, of elders, and I want to show you just a few, and basically to say that our stereotype of what a senior citizen is like is all wrong. Based on the studies now, including a major study this year, this spring, we now know that being an elder is the happiest time of their life. They love being a senior citizen. It's great for them. They have planned for it, everything as well. For the most part, they really like it. So we've given you a whole sheet, not just with some of those that are on the slide there, but there's even more about what is a senior citizen really like today. But before I move on, we want to share one more piece of this too. There are some seniors that have medical conditions that don't fit the norm. And Jane has an example about her mom who got Alzheimer's and her struggle with her mom until something happened. Jane?
When my mother had Alzheimer's, it seemed as if she had a significant personality change. She had never said hurtful things to me, and suddenly she was speaking to me in a harsh, hurtful, and sometimes angry tone. In addition, I really didn't know how to respond when she asked me the same question over and over, and when she accused people of stealing her things, which was totally out of character for her. So I read a book about Alzheimer's, and it gave me very clear guidance and understanding. As I was able to understand how her brain was working and realized that her behavior was normal for a person with Alzheimer's, I was better able to accept her just the way she was and be compassionate and patient as I interacted with her. I learned strategies to help her in situations that caused her to be agitated. And I was able to let go of my own frustration and fears. Thank you.
Now, are we saying here our expectations sometimes really drive us crazy because we expect them to be a certain way and they're not? So we've talked about how to use the program with other people, family people, of course. Now, there's one more thing we need to say, and I know you know this, is that those slogans that we use for ourselves in our meetings can also work really, really well with our family issues. And here are two, and you've probably got many, many more, but this too shall pass. Progress, not perfection. Live and let live. Parenting is a we program, so if you don't know the answers, call somebody, get some help. Easy does it, keep it simple, and many, many more. So slogans, the same slogans we have in recovery, will also work with a lot of the family issues that we have to handle. We can also adapt some of the things like the 12 steps. And here are two adaptions, one for children and one for older family members. It's like we were powerless over our children. We came to believe that some new skills can restore our sanity, new skills that we got in recovery or that we can learn about parenting. Made a decision to try these new skills. Or on the other hand, we were powerless over other adults or even powerless over our parents. We came to believe that new skills could restore us to sanity there. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of what doesn't work and decide to change. You can adopt the 12 steps very easily, which really works well. You can also adopt some of the serenity prayers, and here's just 3 examples. God grant me the serenity to accept the adults I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. Or God grant me the serenity to accept my children's age-appropriate behavior and the courage to provide healthier parenting tools and the wisdom to know when to change. And the last one is from one of our books about reparenting ourselves. God grant me the serenity of the loving parent inside of me, the courage to quiet the inner voice that hurts me, the strength to listen to the voice that affirms me, and the wisdom to hear the difference within me. Works. We have a bigger family resources handout for you, which includes books, podcasts, online parenting, and grandparenting sources, hotlines, newsletters, and tons of great YouTubes that we have found. And there's one example Ellen has of a book that Jane and I just loved, and we asked her if she would share that with you guys. Ellen?
Yes. So this book, I don't know if you can see it.
Hold it
Red,
closer
red,
to
red.
your head. Mhm.
Okay. I'm not sure if it looks blurry.
It-
There it goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
much better when, yeah.
This is Red, 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 and it's a book about a mom and a little boy or a child, and the child has a temper tantrum and it is like out of control, and so they found a way, count to 10 and count to 10 and then breathe in and out, and it works really well. My daughter's been reading it to my grandson since he's 2 years old, and we still read it to him, and I still practice with him whenever he gets out of control. So it's a
Anchor,
great book. Red,
Anchor
Red, Red
sheet. Red. Thank you,
by
Ellen.
Polly Dunbar.
Also on the sheet and on the slide, there is about 10 different handouts that we're going to have available to you. So we've got a lot of it. And all that will be put on our YouTube channel, Growing in Recovery. And at the bottom there is the address or the link to the channel. So there's a lot of stuff out there. And can we solve every problem tonight? Probably not. Now, get your worksheet out, your piece of paper out with all those questions and all of that confusion that maybe what we did tonight caused. And I'm going to stop the video and let us open it up for questions and answers. So my question is, what bothered you that we said? What do you disagree with that we said tonight? What issues do you have that we can start addressing tonight? And you can use your digital hand or you can use your real hand, and we will take a little bit of time to open it up. Who wants to start? Yvonne.
You hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Hear me?
Now.
I had to wear this. I'm a little overwhelmed. Wow. How did I ever think I could be a parent? That's what I'm thinking right now. But my adult daughter comes to me for advice. Should I give it? That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay. Just like the question on that quiz, do we give advice when we're asked to give advice? My answer is no. Now, let me tell you that I can qualify that a little bit. When my son was coming to me and wanting advice on everything from what major should he, concentrate on in college to should he buy a restaurant or not, and I'm not going to give any advice. But what I can do is sit down with him and look at options. And one option is to do whatever he's doing now. And we literally get a piece of paper and pencil and we write down and number them. Option 1, do nothing. Option 2, option 3, option 4, until we have probably put down 10, 12, maybe 15 different options. And then we can go through the options, taking out what just is not a good idea, and then coming up with a few that he might want to think about. But then if he comes to me, Yvonne, he says, but Mom, which one do you think I should do? That's when I have to say, nope,
Mhm,
That is your decision. So whatever you decide, I will support.
mhm.
Who else wants to jump in on that one?
I like that because I've given advice before, not advice, my opinion when asked, and she said, well, you told me blah, blah, blah. So I like
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
brainstorming and writing it down. Thank you.
What's going to happen too if, we are asked to give advice and we give it and they try it and they fail,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and all that. And Vernell?
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Vernell. Glad to be here. Great. It was really good. I enjoyed it and learned a lot. Yeah, I was a total control freak before I got into recovery, and I always gave advice because I thought I knew what was better for everybody else. Now, how arrogant is that? I didn't even know how to take care of myself. I mean, I didn't. I thought I did. I was living in a lie. It was denial. But I've learned same thing, I have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter who's the youngest. And she's the one that she's not doing it as much anymore because I've set boundaries. But she would ask me, what do you think I should do? It could be anything. It could be about the color of her hair, she wanted to do, or it could be anything. And I learned through working the steps and having a sponsor that told me even a suggestion is giving advice. And I said, even a suggestion? This is when I was just working my steps. Now I see it and I understand it. I can listen and say, well, those sound like some good choices. I believe in you. You'll make the best decision for yourself. And it really works. Did she like it? No, not at first, but it's getting easier. And I just don't do it. So she doesn't ask me anymore. Now she goes to her dad and asks him. So that's not my business. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernell. Jane, some thoughts?
Yes, I would just like to share with you, and there was a person in recovery that coached me on how to do this, and it was very effective. And that was how to transition from giving advice to not giving advice, because I have 3 daughters and they came to me on a regular basis. I should say 2 out of the 3 came to me on a regular basis asking me for advice. So I sat down with them and had a discussion about making a change in that area. And they sort of whined and, oh, but Mom, I need you to tell me what to do. But I just made it really clear that going forward, I would no longer be giving advice, that they were fully capable of figuring things out for themselves, that I would be happy to sit down and brainstorm possibilities. And as I've grown in my recovery, I've learned that it's better not even to try to influence their decision, but just express confidence that I'm sure they'll make the right decision. The one daughter that doesn't come to me, I have to tell you, I slipped into giving her advice today for the very reason that I mentioned tonight, that I don't like for my daughters to suffer any pain. And she was very, very sick. And I can tell you, giving her advice did not go well. So it was a reminder, a refresher, that even if my intention is that I don't want her to suffer, it is better that I not give her advice. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Jane. Anne Marie's got her hand up. Anne
Yeah,
Marie. Oh, okay.
I just had to figure out how to unmute myself and take my hand down.
Okay.
I necessarily did not have a problem with my son. The more problem that I had was with my qualifier, my husband, who is 2 years older than I am, and he would always treat me like a child.
Mhm.
And I just, we did 41 years together, which was all great. And we had our ups and downs and bumps and whatever. But I find a lot of it difficult because a lot of times I was walking on eggshells. I was afraid to do things because he was always going to tell me, you're doing it wrong, you're doing this, you're doing that. Well, he's passed away in September. And I was doing something the other day in the house, and I heard him saying, "You're not doing it right." I just know that it feels good that he's not here, but mentally and emotionally, he still is here.
Mhm.
And it's going to take me a while to figure out what to do and how to
Yeah.
deal with things. What I'm needing to do for myself is do what I think is best for me, and not
Mhm.
to worry about what his thoughts would be, because I've heard him for 41 years. I don't need to hear him anymore. Thank you for
Mm-mm.
letting me share.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Isn't that same concept that we let our parents rent space in our head, even though they're not here? I guess she lets her husband rent space in her head too. Ellen?
Hi. For me, there was no spanking, but I guess what was the problem was that there was a lot of, sorry, just because I'm like a lot of rage, I guess, anger, and it's just reparenting myself and trying to do things differently with my kids, because I have that impulse. I want to be just like my dad in this situation, right? Like, it's not that I don't want to be like that, but I'm trying to change, and it's so difficult to do that, right? To be different, to like slow down, like how that book read, right? Calm down and reparent myself. So I just wanted to share that. So thank you. Thanks for the seminar.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you. Abby, some thoughts? Yep, you're trying to do that.
First of all, this has been just an amazing program. I really appreciate it. And a couple of things that really hit home with me is how much more work I have to do on how much advice I just give just without even realizing it. It's not controlling. It comes from a completely different place, but the lack of discipline just that I have to just keep working at and practicing is crazy. But as far as being spanked, yes, I had been beaten by a couple of family members, and when my father finally found out about it, he would never touch me. It was all the punishments had to do with carrots and sticks, taking things away and restrictions, and my having to recite exactly what I did wrong, the shame, which for me was very shameful, but also it was a game that we were playing.
Mhm.
And I never spanked my child, but I did the same. I might as well have spanked her, because I just would beat her up with, if I gave her a consequence and I felt like she had not suffered enough, or learned the right lesson, then I would pile it on. And that's a beating in a sense, a beating down of self-esteem.
Mhm.
So fortunately, I'm in recovery now. And
And
Right.
recovery, helped probably many of us change our own life, right? So it can also change our family lives. And now I am a grandmother, and grandmas, I don't know if you know this or not, but we have no rights at all, no legal rights. And they're even telling us, don't try to be the parent. A grandparent has a totally different role. And I'm trying to learn how to do that myself. But I think the issue tonight is, how do we take recovery tools, a recovery philosophy of life, the principles of recovery, and apply it to family life? And what we're trying to say tonight is, it works easily to apply, that it works in our family as well as in ourselves, as well as in all our other relationships. There's no difference. Now, I get hit a lot by people saying, but you have to discipline children or they'll go wild. There's those questions on that quiz. And I said, you still don't, they said you have to control children. And I'm saying, no, you don't have to ever control children. Have you heard that we need to be a guide on the side, not a sage on the stage? we don't need to be controlling of our children, but we can guide them. But we're even saying guiding without giving advice, without telling them what to do, without even suggesting what they do. Like we've said tonight, they need to grow up and stand on their own 2 feet. And that's what parenting is all about. Just like the little bird that pushes the little birds, mama bird pushes little birds out of the nest so they have to fly. And we have to do the same thing. Our whole role as a parent is to teach our children to leave us and to have enough skills to take care of themselves on their own. And applying it is great. You know, I wish there, of all the 12-step programs, I wish there was one that teaches parents how to parent, how to use the program to parent. There is one called Parents Anonymous, but it's not for this purpose. It's for parents that have children that are alcoholics or drug addicts only. It's not just for applying recovery to family life. There's also one called Families Anonymous, and that one also is about and for people that have children that are alcoholics or drug addicts. Their purpose is different. But so there's nothing that I can find, unless y'all know of one, where people that would like to learn how to be a better family member and to apply these principles in family life, and how they could go to a meeting to find some answers or get some help. So we are going to offer, if the need is there, to create a very informal group for a few months after tonight for support in how to do this. And I'm going to share the screen again. If I can get everything going right here.
Wow.
I'm going to share the screen again and say that if you or anyone you know would like to be a part of a real informal 12-step group to try to adapt recovery principles to family life, we will be glad to work with you for a short period of time. And if so, put your name and your email address or some kind of contact information in the chat box, and we'll get in touch with you. And we can even get together next Wednesday night, a week from tonight, to talk about how to do this, when to meet, what time to meet, and so forth. But is there an interest is the question.
Yes.
Then if anybody would like to do this, we can meet, a week from tonight, same number, same time period, and we'll see where it goes from here. But also notice that the program tonight was being recorded, so if people see it long after tonight, then there's 2 of us that they can call and get some help with a particular issue. So that is what we want to share tonight. Any more thoughts, questions? Then I'm going to turn it over to Ellen to close us out. Ellen?
Okay. Oops. My script is on my phone. Okay. As we bring this Zoomcast to a close, as always, take what you need and leave the rest. This is the last of the Zoomcast this fall, and we hope they have helped you with your recovery journey. Handouts are being posted in our Google Docs account listed with the video, or you may email growing up together in recovery at gmail.com for a copy. I'll close with a version of the Serenity Prayer. Today, I seek the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. Thank you.